Welcome to the program. I'm Markus Karlsson. We're bringing you the show today from central Paris. It's a long way from Russia, but today we're going to put the spotlight on that country's economy. I'm sitting down with Russia's Economic Development Minister, Alexei Ulyukayev. This at a time when there are growing concerns of slowing growth and economic turmoil in emerging economies like Russia. Minister Ulyukayev, thank you very much indeed for speaking with us today, and welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
Now, I just made reference to the turmoil that we've seen in emerging markets as of late. For instance, we've seen the Russian ruble come down quite sharply against the dollar and the euro. It's stabilized now somewhat. Still, though, we have these concerns about emerging economies. What do you make of that?
Well, you know, the exchange rate, it's like a pendulum. We have overshooting from time to time. People buy and sell currencies, seeking to get their profits. And for previous several weeks, we have to say that it was over devaluation of ruble against hard currencies. But of course, beside the short-term turmoil, there are long-term tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, general tendency is the rates of growth of developed countries and emerging markets. Now it's more in parallel. Before it was, say, 4 times higher for emerging markets.
We're seeing a little bit of a rebalancing with more growth
now,
coming back in developed markets.
Kind of reindustrialization of United States and European countries, and increase of costs of production in China, India, and Russia also.
And how worrying is that development for you? Is it worrying?
Of course it's worrying, but you have to change your new model of growth. Said last several years we have kind of recovery growth after the crisis of 1998-99, and then after 2008, 2009. In 2012, the recovery is over. Now we have the using of labor force and productive forces higher than before, and the level of unemployment is not more than 5.5. So it's very difficult just to increase the production with just demand, fiscal demand or monetary demand and other things.
In the very short term, obviously, we have the Olympic Games underway in Sochi. It's the most expensive games ever. Somewhere in the vicinity of $50 billion have been spent on these games. Is that going to provide a boost for the Russian economy in the short term, as I say?
Yeah, of course, then you spend your money in investment projects that create new working places and new production in different branches of your economy, metals, constructions, transportations, and others. Of course, it's influence, but I would not say that it's big macroeconomic phenomena. But it's very important for local, for southern Russia, for Krasnodar region development, of course. So now, then we're finished with the investment such as investment project, and now it's important to move these productive forces in construction to some other areas, not to lose the rate of investment caused by these big projects. We have some more big infrastructure projects in railroad and car road, for instance, projects, and if we move these facilities to there, I think we will not lose.
Now, if we look at economic growth this year, it's expected to come in somewhere between 2 and 2.5%, which is seen as pretty low for Russia. It's one of the lowest rates that we've seen since Vladimir Putin became president back in 2000. What do you say about that growth rate?
I would say that the lowest one was in previous year, 2014. We had, unfortunately, only 1.3% in GDP growth, close to zero, and
still, though,
industry.
We seem to be witnessing a little bit of a downward trend when it comes to annual growth in Russia. Obviously, it may pick up somewhat this year from last year. Still, though, most recent years, it's been pretty low.
My feeling is that the lowest point was somewhere around third quarter of last year, because beginning from third quarter, the situation with our export is becoming better, both in physical amounts and in value. It began to increase once again. By the way, especially non-oil and gas export of Russia. So it's a good tendency, but it's not enough. The point is, if we'll be in a position to attract new investments in the economy. So our focus is 4% of investments growth, Approximately 4% in consumer demand growth, more or less the same as in previous year. So altogether it will mean something like 2.5% in GDP terms.
But the Russian economy still seems to be facing enormous challenges. There's criticism that the state is too dominant when it comes to Russian business. There's a very high reliance still on high oil prices in order to balance the state budget. Also, corruption is seen to be rife. What do you say of those issues?
Too many questions to answer. For my mind, we have two big problems. The biggest problem, and some big ones also, the biggest problem is costs of production. Because what's the reason for investors to come to emerging markets? Low costs that create you a great return to capital. So our normal rate of return to capital was around 30% for years. Now, not only Russia, but other emerging markets, we are losing this preference on the costs. Our costs becoming closer to developed economies. I mean, labor costs, but also electricity and gas, railroad, transportation, and others. So our problem is regulation of the prices in tariffs and also somehow cost management, both on micro and macro level, plus general investment climate. How to make it more comfortable for investors, make them easier to get piece of land, to get the access to electricity and gas, and then to decide their problems with the authorities, with the tax administration, custom duty administration, and others. The corruption, fortunately, now is not the #1 problem. And I recently been in Davos, and we have an interactive panel with the investors, and the corruption was #5, #6%, like that. So everybody do understand that it still exists, but it's not so acute as it used to be before. And it's very important to make a clear, transparent rules. For instance, this year we introduced a special law of how to spend budget money. The rules will have electronic auctions, and we have some specific demand for internet publication of all the sales concerning budget money on both federal and regional level. It's very important in that case.
But just to pick up on that corruption point, in Transparency International's most recent corruption index, Russia came in at position 127 out of 177 countries. It still seems that Russia has a lot to do when it comes to that issue.
Well, you see, the corruption is not quantitative but quality phenomena. You cannot verify these indexes. You cannot estimate it. It's undercovered. You know, it's only hypothesis of the voters which participate in this investigation. You give me example, and I give you the other example with that Davos investors contributing in this interactive panel. But of course, anyone inside the country and outside of it do understand that it exists. We have special regulation for government officials like me, for instance, about real estate, about banking accounts, how to make it. We publish it, for instance. Everybody, including you can very easily get information about me. And if, for instance, my welfare will jump for a couple of years, it will be quite understandable and investigatable, right? But this is only the part of the story. The general, as I said before, the clear rules. We have very clear rules, and plus the courts, juridical system. That is why, for instance, some businesses prefer offshore jurisdiction for their companies to be registered, their deals to be
You're talking about
made.
the rule of law there and the necessity of rule of law.
Yes, rule of law and law enforcement, of course. Well, our laws are not bad, but sometimes law enforcement, including working of courts, is not so good.
That's something that definitely needs improvement.
Of course.
Now, I want to change tack a little bit. I want to talk about Iran. You've recently announced that you will be heading to Iran in April. What will you be doing there as Russia's economic development minister?
Yes, it was not me who announced, it was Iranian ambassador. I thought that it's quite, ordinary working processes. We have meeting from time to time. Last time we met in ministerial conference in Bali with our ministers, and the Iranian minister invited me to visit country just to look through our trade relationships, to think about possible investment stories and so on. So for now, we understand that European countries change their position against Iran after Iran become more flexible concerning the nuclear project problem. So we believe that's a positive process, and we are going to participate in the process, positive process, together with other countries, of course.
Americans, though, the Americans, they've expressed some reticence about companies going back into Iran already before nuclear sanctions are actually dropped. Barack Obama said the other day, for instance, that the United States would come down like a ton of bricks on anyone who violates sanctions on Iran. What do you say about that kind of statements?
I would say that Russia was not and is not the country which is #1 in relations with Iran, and we know other emerging market, big emerging markets countries which have much closer relations and have much bigger trade turnover with them. So we're all the time in accordance with the decisions of the international society. Plus, we understand some specific American ideas, even in the times which are not in the pure accordance with the international regulation. So we include the American position in our estimation. I think we are very cooperative in that case.
All right, we're going to have to wrap it up there because we have run out of time. Alexei Ryukayev, I want to thank you for taking the time to speak to us today.
Thank you so much.
And with that, we're going to wrap up the program. Thanks for watching France 24, and do stay with us.